everyone, and welcome to the guest lecture series under the Quarantine Edition 2020, an initiative by Technovanza VJTI. This is Akhila Jagarlapudi, and I am thrilled to be your host for today. VJTI was established in the year 1887 and is upholding its proud legacy of over a century filled with brilliance and educational prowess. Furthermore, it has thrived in nurturing the brightest minds of the society. Technovanza has always been the prime platform where the flame of expertise has been meritoriously passed on to light more torches. An ardent desire to enlighten young minds and imbibe impeccable qualities within them has been the very objective of the GLS since its inception. Hence, during these difficult and unprecedented times, we at Technovanza find a strong sense of purpose and desire to contribute towards an uplifting and exuberant event called the GLS Quarantine Edition. Pioneers of diverse fields have graced Technovanza with their presence, while progressively illuminating young minds to new areas of interest. Behold, because today we are elated to add a truly inspirational name to our glorious list of dignitaries. Our guest today is the former Director of Engineering with the US Air Force's Special Operations Command, as well as an engineer at Kennedy Space Center for NASA, where he was a member of NASA's Speakers Bureau for 10 years. Having visited more than 500 schools across America, Brazil, Norway, Denmark, Germany, Qatar, England, Singapore, and Australia, he likes interacting with students and gets them excited about space and science. His journey from his school days, working part-time at McDonald's, and finally working for NASA, his journey to fame is truly inspirational. Today, we are pleased to welcome the phenomenal Mr. Gabe Gabrielle. Mr. Gabe will be sharing with us his life journey and his expert outlook on different space missions. So without any further ado, let's get into conversation about the future advancements with the best man to guide us there, Mr. Gabe.
Hello, everybody in India. This is Gabe. I'm in Cocoa Beach, Florida. It's morning time here, 9 o'clock. I know it's 6:30 there, so good evening to you all. It's a wonderful opportunity. For those of you who don't know, I was in India in August. I was there for, I think, 12 days and traveled all around India, and it was wonderful. So if any of you met me then or have been emailing me or writing to me, it's a privilege, and I want to thank everybody for your kindness. It was a wonderful experience. I had been trying to go to India for about 7 years, and I was never able to do it. I finally found someone to help me, and it was wonderful. So this morning, we're going to talk about the space shuttle, why we had a space shuttle, talk about astronauts, what they're doing up on the space station, show you what they're doing on space station, talk about the rovers on Mars, what they're doing on Mars, the rovers that are currently there, as well as the future mission, which involves Perseverance going to Mars next month. And then we'll talk a little bit about the future of the space program, which involves astronauts. Hopefully some of you will have that opportunity to go to Mars. So before we start that, I want to talk to you a little bit about myself. So I like to tell you the first thing is, everyone is going to tell you in your life, you must work hard. In order to be successful at anything, you must work hard. If you want to do well in school, you must work hard. If you want to do well at sports, you must work hard. Anything you do, you have to work hard. But I want to tell you all, it's so important. You never have to work, and nothing ever has to be hard. Your life should be fun. Everything you do should be fun. No work, no stress, no pressure, just fun. And you can be very successful doing that. Now I'm going to share with you how to do that. I want you to think about 3 things, and we'll talk about these 3 things as we progress. The first thing is, do your best. I don't care what it is, challenge yourself to do your best. The second thing, enjoy everything you do. If you enjoy everything you do, you'll always have fun. And the most important is believe in yourself. If you can develop a strong belief in yourself, you'll never have stress, you'll never have pressure, you'll never work. Your life should be fun. And I live this way, and I'm no different than you. And I want to tell you a little bit about me and what I had to do growing up. So the first thing I like to tell you is I hated school. I did terrible in school. I failed almost everything I ever did because I loved the beach and I loved sports. So when I was a little kid, they dragged me off the beach and they put me in a box and they said, read. And I didn't want to do that. I really, really struggled. To make it worse, I have a twin sister. And my twin sister, she loves school. So when you're a twin, you're always compared. So my sister, she was the smart twin. I was the not so smart twin. My sister was a twin who never got in trouble. I was the twin who always got in trouble. She was the twin who never gave my parents problems. I was the twin who always gave my parents problems. And my parents would say to me, why can't you be like your sister? She never gives us trouble. All you do is create trouble. And I used to think in my mind, my sister loves school. I hate school. Why do I want to be like her? It didn't make sense. But somehow my sister knew when she was 5 years old that she wanted to be a teacher. So she loved school because she knew it was taking her to become a teacher. So I really, really struggled going through school. In America, we have to go to high school. We don't have a choice. I didn't want to go to high school, but I had to go. So I said, okay, I have to go to high school. But in high schools in America, we have great sports programs. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to high school just to play sports, not to study, not to learn, just to go play sports. So I did just enough studying in high school to get through school. When I finished high school, I said, I'm done. I'm never going back to school again. There's not enough money in the world to drag me back to school. So my first job out of high school was working at McDonald's, flipping burgers and making fries. It was awesome. No homework, no tests, hanging out with my friends. I thought, this is great. This is what I want to do. I found my best thing to do. But I like to race cars. I like to build and race cars. I actually have a shop at my house where I build and race cars. So in order to race cars, you have to generate a lot of income. And working at McDonald's, I couldn't do that. So for 12 years, I tried many different jobs. I drove a truck, I drove a bus, I was a mechanic, anything I could do to try to generate the income. And it didn't work. So after 12 years, I said, okay, I have to go to university. So I went to university at night. It took me 8 years to finish university. So 20 years after I finished high school, I finished university. And it was the best thing I ever did. And I encourage all of you who are watching or listening to go to university if you can. When I was in India, I went to many universities there, and the universities there are fantastic. So I know you have a lot of opportunities in India, and I encourage you to do that. You don't have to be super smart. You don't have to be anything but determined, and you can do this. So with that, we'll start the presentation. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about a space shuttle and why we had a space shuttle. You know, the main reason we had a space shuttle was to build the International Space Station. In America, we have something called STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And STEM is very important because it gives you the opportunity for many good jobs. I also like to tell you a little bit about what it's like to be in the Space Center. Everywhere I go, I've been to, I think, 15 countries, and everywhere I go, people say to me, hey, Gabe, what's it like to be at a Space Center? What do you do every day? Oh, and before I forget, I would like to ask all of you, you can see my name is Gabe. That's a nickname. That's what I want you to call me. So many people from India write to me and they call me sir. And I always write back, say, please call me Gabe, not sir, but I respect you. That's okay. I really like you to call me Gabe. That's what my friends call me. So when I'm traveling around and they ask me what it's like to be at a space center, I tell them it's magic. It's the most fun thing you can do. Can you imagine going into work and there you see a ship being built or seeing rocket launches? Every day there's something magical happening. In America, we have many space centers. I'm at Kennedy Space Center, which is in Cocoa Beach, Florida. Around the US, they have many space centers. One of the more famous ones is in Houston, Texas. It's called Johnson Space Center. And this is where the astronauts live and train. So they live and train at Houston. When there was a launch, they'll come to Kennedy. They would get on the shuttle, or in the future, they'll get on Orion or even SpaceX, and they will fly to space. But they live and work in Houston. So I have a little movie to show you what it's like to be at a space center. So that's what it's like to be at a space center. You see, it's a lot of fun. Everything in your life should be fun. And it's the same at the Space Center. It's just a magical environment. So earlier I mentioned about STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And STEM was brought about to get kids in America interested in math and science so they could actually compete with international students who are doing so much better. So I also have a little movie, whoops, to show you a little bit about STEM.
Uh, Hi Gabe, actually the video voice is not audible.
Everything okay? We also have something called STEAM that has an A in it: science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And this is a very good friend of mine. Her name is Tina. When I was going to school and studying math and science, she was going to Juilliard School of Dance in New York City and studying to become a dancer. And she became a very good dancer. And she taught me about STEAM. She said, "Hey, Gabe, when I study arts, I have to learn these 10 things. I have to learn to be creative, build confidence, solve problems. The same things you do in math and science, we do in the arts. In a lot of ways, they're interchangeable. Normally, if you're good at one, you can be good at the other. It's just where your most interest is." So I always like to talk about STEAM more than STEM. This is one of my favorite pictures in the space program because you see all those billions of stars above us. We don't see them on the Earth because the light from the Earth filters them out. But if it was completely black on Earth and you look up at the sky at night, you would see all those billions of stars every single night. Can you imagine what that would look like? When we had shuttle launches, we had day launches and we had night launches. And the night launches were super spectacular because what would happen, if you go to a soccer match or a football match in India and you go and you're sitting around the soccer match, the field, and you're watching from what we call the bleachers, the same thing at a shuttle launch or any launch. Anytime there's a launch, it's a huge party. So we'll usually go to the launch site 2 or 3 hours ahead of time, bring out food and drinks and have a big party, just like you're going to do at a soccer match. And we're sitting in bleachers, actually looking at the launch pad. And it's dark, but everything is lit up. And then about 3 minutes before the launch, they shut off all of the lights. You're sitting there, it's pitch black. And when the shuttle takes off, the light from the engines are so bright, it literally turns night into day. And it launches over the water. So you not only get the light from the engines coming down, it reflects off the water and goes up. So it's just super spectacular at night. This is a very rare picture because there's two shuttles on a launch pad. The main reason we had a space shuttle, it was the only thing large enough and powerful enough to bring the big pieces to space to build a space station. So if the astronauts were going to the space station, they would get in the shuttle, they would go up into space, they would put on a spacesuit, and they would go outside and build a space station. If there was a safety issue, something that might harm them or kill them, they could go inside the space station for safety. This mission was going to the Hubble telescope, and it was towards the end of the shuttle program. And there was a concern if the astronauts got up in space, there was no safe place for them to go, and they might die in space. So they had a second one on the launch pad as a rescue mission. It was the only time in the history of the space program they had two active shuttles on the launch pad. It wasn't necessary, but it was a picture. It's the same thing at night. You can see these things for about 30 or 40 kilometers away. They're brilliantly lit up at night. And I love being on the beach. I'm on the beach every chance I can. So you can walk along the beach and you can see these things lit up from the beach. You can get in a boat and go through the water and see them that way. And there's actually a road that goes past Kennedy Space Center. You can drive on the road and see them lit up at night. They're very, very pretty. This is called a VAB, the Vehicle Assembly Building. Most of the time when you see a picture of NASA, you see this huge building. And what happens in that building is called Vehicle Assembly Building. Anything that goes to space is called a vehicle, and it's assembled or put together inside of that building. All of the moon missions, we're celebrating 50 years ago that astronauts landed on the moon. All those moon missions were assembled inside that building. All of the shuttle missions were put together inside that building. All of the future missions, when astronauts are going to Mars, they will all be put together inside that building. Now, I do race cars. That's one of the cars I race. It's fun to drive it out to work every once in a while. It's a convertible, no top. I love being in the sunshine. I love being on the beach. So I'm always on the beach. And in the car, the top is always down, but it's a lot of fun to do that. So if you can see right in the middle, in the center of this picture, you see a little orange, that's the launch pad. And the VAB, if you're looking at this picture, the VAB is just to the left of this screen. So it's all put together in the VAB and it has to be taken to the launch pad. It's about 5 kilometers away. And this is how it gets there. Now, if you look at this picture right in the back on the lower corner, you can see a little person. Gives you an idea how big this is. The bottom is called a crawler transporter. The middle is called a mobile launch platform. And the shuttle has 4 main parts. The part that looks like a plane is called an orbiter because it goes above the Earth and it orbits the Earth. The part in the middle is a fuel tank. It has liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, and it's got 2 solid rocket boosters. So it takes about 5 hours to go those 5 kilometers. They'll go about 100 meters and they'll stop and they'll check everything, and they do that to get out to the launch pad. So this is what it looks like at launch. There's 3 engines in the orbiter and the 2 solid rocket boosters. Combined is 3 million kilos pushing against the Earth. Now I'm going to show you a launch, but I want to tell you a little bit about it first. So I'm sure many of you have flown in a plane, or if you haven't flown in a plane, what happens is you get on at a passenger terminal, you get in a plane, and it goes on a taxiway to a runway. When it gets at the runway, it stops, and they rev up the engines. You can hear the engines revving up and building power. And when they build a lot of power, they take off horizontally. Well, the shuttle does the same thing, but it's taking off vertically. So it's clamped down on the launch pad. It's trying to take off and it's clamped down. The engines are starting about 6 seconds before it launches. They start the engine and they're building up power and building up power for these 6 seconds. And then it takes off. And what happens during that time, we're about 5 kilometers away. We're really fortunate on the Space Center. We're only 5 kilometers away. Most of the general public is about 50 kilometers away. So we're really lucky to be that close. But what happens when you're that close? You're still 5 kilometers away. So you really can't see it and you really can't hear it, but you feel it. Because what happens when they start those engines and it's trying to take off and it's got those 3 million kilos pushing against the Earth, you get a vibration in your feet. The Earth literally shakes. So you get this vibration in your body is shaking. It's really crazy. And all the cars feel it. So all the horns are honking, the alarms are going off, sirens are going off, lights are flashing, your body is shaking, and you get this launch. It's just amazing. So the first thing that happens inside that tank is liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. I know most of you have probably had chemistry, you know about the periodic table. Oxygen and hydrogen are 2 gases in our atmosphere. They make them super cold, they become a liquid, and they put them inside that tank. So when they're inside that tank, the hot Florida sun heats up the tank. So those liquids in there, they expand and they vent out the top. So there's gases all around the orbiter. They don't want to launch that way. It might go up in flames. So the first thing you're going to see at the bottom of the orbiter, they're called igniters. They're just little sparks. They're burning off any vented fumes. And the second thing you're going to see, it looks like smoke, but it's actually steam. They put 3 million liters of water on the launch pad for heat and noise suppression. So the first thing you'll see at the bottom of the orbiter, you'll see these igniters burning off any vented fumes. And when the engine starts, it's building up power and it's locked down on the launch pad. So it can't take off because it's locked down. That's the steam from the water. And now your whole body is shaking. All the car alarms are going off, lights are flashing, horns are honking. You got this magic sensation. It's awesome. And it messes with your mind because it goes so fast. For the first 2 minutes, they're bouncing around, but it goes so fast, it leaves the sound behind. So it's getting further and further away and the sound is getting louder and louder. So you've got all these crazy things going on. It's just a super cool experience. After 2 minutes, the boosters fall off and it gets very smooth. The boosters fall off above the water, about 50 kilometers above the water. Parachute opens, they fall gently in the water. A ship goes out, picks them up. They're brought back to the Space Center. They're cleaned and reused. Then the tank and the orbiter go up in orbit. The tank falls off and burns up in the atmosphere. If you can imagine, it only takes 8.5 minutes. You're sitting on Earth, 8.5 minutes later, you're up in space. This Buzz Lightyear. Buzz Lightyear was brought in the space program to make it fun for kids. Remember, everything about your life and everything about space is fun, and you always want to have fun. Remember these things. Do your best. Enjoy what you do. Believe in yourself. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. It will make your life so much fun. So Buzz Lightyear is actually named after a very famous astronaut, Buzz Aldrin, who was the second person to walk on the moon. And about 2 years ago, I was on the beach. I'm always on the beach every chance I can. And somebody said to me, do you want to meet Buzz? And I said, Buzz who? And they said, Buzz Aldrin. I said, the guy that was on the moon? They said, yes. And I said, of course. So I got to hang out with Buzz Aldrin, one of only 12 people in the whole world to walk on the moon for about an hour and just listen to him talk what it was like 50 years ago to go to the moon, to build a space program and all the adventures he had. Only good things happen on the beach. And that's something I will never forget. This is Woody. Woody's at all the launches too, again, having fun. When the astronaut leaves, he waves, and when he come back, he claps. It's always a fun environment. I don't know if you guys can see what this is, or I don't know if I can tell you what it is. Usually I ask the audience, can anybody guess? But I will just tell you what it is. This is breaking the sound barrier. To give you an idea how fast this shuttle goes. If you're on Earth and you have a rifle, you know, a rifle is a very powerful gun. And the rifle bullet goes about 3,000 kilometers per hour. Think how fast 3,000 kilometers per hour. I race cars. I'd love to go 3,000 kilometers per hour. Never going to happen in a car. But when you're in a shuttle and you're going up in space, you're going 27,000 kilometers per hour. So you're going 9 times faster than a rifle bullet. If you can imagine that huge ship going that fast to break through the atmosphere to get into space. This is called the Orbiter Processing Facility. Remember, the part that looks like a plane is actually called an orbiter. And I always like to talk to the girls. I want the guys to listen, but this is just for the girls. I want the guys to listen, but I want the girls to know you can do anything. You can be anything. Don't let anybody tell you because you're a girl, you can't do something. Sometimes young girls are told you can't do it. It's only for boys. But don't listen. You know, if somebody tells us as a boy or as a guy, we can't do something, we don't care. We do it anyway. It doesn't matter. But sometimes girls listen. So I want the girls to know, especially in the space program, you can do anything. And one of the greatest things about the space shuttle program, many, many women engineers were brought into the space program. If you look at the moon missions from 50 years ago, there's not one woman anywhere, not a single one. It's 100% guys. With the advent of the shuttle program, many, many women engineers got involved. So now women fly the orbiter, they navigate the orbiter, they maintain their orbiter. They're an intricate part of the space program, as are the guys. And just like, you know, STEAM, where you have math and science put together, when you have guys and girls put together, we are different. We look at things differently. And when you combine the two, you get a much better product. So this girl, her job is to put the engine in the orbiter. Every time the orbiter goes up in space and it comes back down, it's completely disassembled. Everything is taken out and checked, including the engines. So the engines have to be put back in. So she's on a forklift. She has a handheld controller, moves the forks up and down, side to side, in and out, and she has to guide that engine into the orbiter. If she hits the engine on the side of the orbiter, she could damage the engine, damage the orbiter, create millions of dollars worth of damage, and delay the mission. So it's critical she does it correctly. It takes her 3 hours for an engine. She never makes a mistake. She's awesome. So I want all of you to know, girls and guys, you can do anything in the space program. I love living by the beach. We always live by the beach. And one of the most fun things about the shuttle launches, they're always by the beach. So when the shuttle's on the pad, we have these gorgeous sunrises with the shuttle on the pad coming over the water. This is the ISS, the International Space Station. The main reason we had the shuttle was to build the International Space Station. It took 12 years to build a space station. This was 5 years. This is 8 years. And this is how it looks now. It's completed. And that's why the shuttle stopped flying. There wasn't anything wrong with it. Its primary mission was to build a space station. Once the space station was completed, its mission was complete, and that's why it stopped. Have any of you in India, have you seen it come over your house? If you'd like to see it come over your house, it's really simple to do. You can go to the NASA site, nasa.g, or you can just Google CDSISS. When you do CDISS, it will take you to a link. It will ask for your home address and your email, and it will tell you 24 hours in advance when it's coming over your house. You don't need a telescope. You don't need binoculars. You can just go outside and see it. It looks like a very bright star. But you know, when you see a star, you're not really seeing the star. You're seeing the light from the star, and it's stationary. But with the ISS, you can see it for 4 or 5 minutes going across the sky. So if something you haven't done and you'd like to do, just remember, just Google CDISS and it'll take you to that link. This gives you an idea how big it is. Now, this is an American football field, which is a lot bigger than an Indian soccer field. And I was in Brazil not too long ago and I was at a soccer field and I was thinking, man, the ISS is much bigger than this soccer field. So you can see on Earth, it will weigh almost 500,000 kilos. In space, it weighs nothing. Every 90 minutes, it goes around the Earth one time. So when the astronauts up in space, they see the sunrise and the sunset 16 times every day, while we only see it once on Earth. There's 16 nations involved in building the International Space Station. You know, this was formed about 30 years ago. So I don't know why India isn't in there, but probably at that time, the space program in India wasn't that big. I'm not sure why it's not in there. But now India is a great ally, and the Indian space program is excellent. I always encourage you to try to get involved in Indian space program. Many people ask me, how can I get to NASA? I want to come to NASA. But I encourage you, stay in your country. Try to help your space program get better. It's really good. And India's got a lot of great things going for it in the future. So hopefully you'll be able to help your space program. If you want to come to NASA, you can do that as well. I will show you how to do that. But I always encourage you to stay home and try to help your country. You know, we know the Indian people are so smart, and it's really funny. When I went to India, I thought, wow, all these people are so smart. How am I going to talk to them? But it really turned out very, very well. So I encourage you to try to stay in India and help your space program. This little movie will show you how it was put together. Each piece was brought up in the cargo bay of the orbiter. There's 2 big doors in the back of it. They open it, they put the piece in, they go up into space. The part on the top are called solar arrays. They take energy from the sun, they convert it to electricity. That's what's used to power the space station. The part you see going across diagonally, that's called a truss. A truss is something that simply gives a structure strength. All of you, many of you, I'm sure, will take engineering and you will learn that trusses, all structures have trusses. The cylindrical or round part, that's where the astronauts live and stay. And when they go up in space, they stay up there for 6 months. And they're what's a laboratory. So they're doing experiments and they're floating in space and they're learning to live in space. So the part that just went up was called cupola. It actually has a great big window on the bottom of it. And I'll show you what it's like to be up in space and look down through that cupola module. So one of the things I like to talk to you about, how important it is to do well in school and how to make learning fun. Remember, everything in your life should be fun, as well as learning. If you can make learning fun, it will be easier and you'll remember it longer. Now, when I was in school, my sister and I, we would get on a bus and we would go to school. We'd get on a bus and we'd come back home and we would go in our house. So the first thing my sister would do, she would go in a room and she would turn on music and she would sing and dance to her lessons. She was making it fun. And I used to look at her and think, what's wrong with you? You could be outside, you could at the beach. Why are you in this house? But she made learning fun. And that's what you want to do. Try different things in learning. We're all different. See what works best for you. Because the habits you develop in school, you're going to take with you for the rest of your life. And I don't care what you take in school, you're going to learn it by doing it once you get on the job. And it's the same for the astronauts. The habits they learned in school, they use as astronauts to train. Now in Houston, Texas, there's a great big pool. It has a fancy name. It's called a neutral buoyancy laboratory. Buoyancy means you float. Neutral buoyancy means you don't float, you don't sink. Now on Earth, gravity holds us down. So we really can't float on Earth the way we can in space, and astronauts have to train floating like they do in space. But we can float on water. So astronauts train in this big pool, just the same thing that they're going to do in space. Everything is identical. Now, when we jump in the water, our body is what's called buoyant. We float on the top. So you put a weight belt around your waist proportional to your waist. Now this pool is about 20 meters deep by 40 meters wide by 50 meters long. And when they put this weight belt down, they'll go about 10 meters in this 20-meter pool, and they'll stay there. They don't go up and they don't go down. And the reason they go below the water, because if they practice above the water, gravity will still affect them. So they want to get away from all of the gravity. So they practice in the water for about a year, everything that they're going to do in space. This guy, you see the big pool behind him, he's getting ready to go in the water. Again, everything is identical. This is part of the truss. The truss is a big, heavy metal piece. If you put it in the water, it will sink to the bottom. So they prop it up in a neutral buoyancy state. This astronaut, now she's getting ready to go in the water. Everywhere she goes, 2 divers accompany her. In case there's a problem, they can get her right out of the water. Here's something that looks very simple, putting a screw in a wall. Well, I have a shop, I build cars, and it's very easy. I use my body strength and torque. It's simple. But if you're floating, you have no real strength and you have no real torque. So something as simple as putting a screw in a wall on Earth becomes very complicated in space. It's so important you learn to help each other and learn to be a team. One of the reasons I love sports so much, and sports, if you don't play as a team, you will never win. You can take 5 of the best players on one sport, put them together. If they don't play as a team, 5 players who aren't as good and play as a team will win every time. It's so important you learn to help each other. The astronauts are always in a life-threatening state. So it's really important that they learn to help each other, and they're always got each other's back. So I'd like to ask you, I know I can't hear, but I'd like to ask how many of you have a BFF, a best friend forever? A best friend forever is really, really important. For those of you who have one, you know what I mean. For those who don't, you will have one sometime in your life. And a BFF is really, really important. Now I have a great BFF. I have many BFFs, but this BFF, his name is Randall. Randall is totally blind. He can't see anything, but he does everything. Now we compete in triathlons, and I'm his sighted guide in a triathlon. And one day Randall came to me and he said, "Hey, Gabe, I want to do a triathlon." I said, "Okay, what's a triathlon?" He said, "We have to swim, bike, and run." And I said, "Okay, I'm athletic. I can do anything. Let's go do it." But he said, "I can't." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "I'm blind." But I said, "You do everything else. Let's go figure it out." So we do what's called a sprint triathlon, which is a short distance triathlon. So in the swim portion, we swim about 750 meters. We put a rope around my waist and a rope around his waist, and I have to guide him through the swim. For the bike portion, we ride about 50 kilometers. We build a bike for 2. We have to pedal with each other. If we pedal against each other, we'll be exhausted for the last part, which is a 5K run. And we have a little 30-centimeter rope. I hold one and he holds the other end. That's how we do the triathlons. And I want to tell you all something. From this day, the rest of your life, I don't care what you do, where you go, you got a new BFF. His name is Randall, and he's going to go with you. And if you think you can't do something, Randall is going to say to you, "I'm blind. I can do it. So can you." And I want to tell you something really, really important. You can never fail, never. Because anytime you do something, you learn. And when you learn, become a better and wiser person. So never be afraid to try something. Remember, Randall is with you, Gabe's with you. We're going to be cheering you on. It's so important. And you can do anything. I have to promise you, remember those 3 things. Do your best, enjoy what you do, believe in yourself. Learn those 3 things. Your life will be filled with joy, no stress, no pressure, just have fun. And this is the way I live. I'm a burger flipper from McDonald's. If I can do it, so can you. So this astronaut, she's in neutral buoyancy. She's not going up, she's not going down. She's working on part of the space station that she's going to build in space. Next thing I want to show you what it's like to live in space. Now, when you're up in space, you're up in space for 6 months and nothing weighs anything. So you never use any muscles. So if you're up in space for 6 months and you don't use any muscles, when you come back on Earth, you'll flop on the floor. Or if you're in a spaceship and you're going to another planet and you don't use muscles for 6 months, you'll flop on the floor. When you get to the planet, you'll be useless. So one of the things the astronauts are learning to do in space now is to train how to exercise, how to stay fit. Now they have 3 things up in space in very way similar to on Earth. They have a stationary bike, a lot like we do on Earth. The big difference with the bike, it has no seat because they're floating. So they're bungeed onto this bike. And they have a treadmill, again, a lot like Earth, but it's not on the floor. It's actually on a wall. So they're floating above the floor. They're bungeed on this treadmill. And the third thing, it looks like a weight machine. Now, I go to the gym, I lift weights, but it looks like a weight machine, but nothing weighs anything. So it's hydraulics. So when you see them lifting like a weight machine, actually they're compressing fluids, which causing the resistance to build muscle. So you see this guy's riding a stationary bike. Now he's not sitting on it, he's bungeed onto it, or he would float away. That's his water bottle. I'm always looking for my water bottle. It's just right here. You see this guy's got his feet hooked so he doesn't float away. But everything floats, so they never physically use any muscles. Even the crew member, they're floating around. And this guy's shaving. He doesn't have to put his razor down. It's just floating there. And the guy in the back is actually taking a bath. You can't take a shower or bath. Water goes everywhere. So they take what's called a sponge bath. They're in a sterile environment, so there's no germs like on Earth. And this guy's taking a drink. Instead of putting it in his mouth, he pours it out. All liquids become a ball in space. He made it too big, so he just cuts it in half and takes his drink. Now everybody sleeps in a sleeping bag. Now you can sleep standing on your head, horizontal, vertical, any position you want. It all feels the same. So if you want to sleep standing on your head, you can do that. And they sleep what's called a sleeping station, where they're Velcroed in so they don't float around and bump into something. To get around, you give yourself a little push and you never stop. This great big box, if this box was on Earth, if we were all together, all of us watching this, we couldn't move it. It weighs so much. But on Earth, in space, it weighs nothing. And you can see she's got her hair pinned up because she didn't pin it up with a big powder puff all around her head. So most of the women either pin it up or cut it short when they go in space. And they're having a little taco break. Now there's no chairs. They're all floating around this table and they're having a little taco break. Remember, everything is fun. And this is E.T. We all know about E.T. E.T.'s up at the space station. He hangs out there, comes down, says hello, and goes back. So I always ask you, I know I can't get the response, but I always ask you, how many of you would like to go up in space? I think it would be fascinating. When I was working at the Space Center, every day I brought a little bag with me. I put it by my desk, say, Gabe, we got one seat. I'm gone. If they call me up today and say, Gabe, we got one seat, I'm packed and ready to go. I hope most of you will think about it in the future because you're actually at a great time in life. The space program is expanding all over the world, including India. And there are many, many people who have opportunities. Not only governments, but commercial companies are now going to space. So if you think you'd like to do it, it's going to be probably 20 or 25 years before people actually get to Mars. And if you think it's something you'd like to do over the next 20, 25 years, you can plan that and you can actually have the opportunity to do that. And I encourage you, you know, in the space program, you can do almost anything. You can be a cook, you can be a nurse, you can be an engineer, you can be a mechanic, you can be an astronaut. You can do almost anything and be part of the space program. So I really encourage you, if it's something you think you'd like to do, it's so much fun and it's so exciting. The next thing I want to show you, what it's like to be up in space and look down onto Earth. So you're going to see how the continents are all lit up. And you see a lot of electrical storms, these big lightning storms. We have a lot of lightning in Florida, have these huge storms. Sometimes we think they're only small, but sometimes they're hundreds of kilometers long. You see that greenish layer across the top, that's called the ionosphere. It separates our atmosphere from space. Remember, every 90 minutes they go around one time. So they see the sunrise 16 times every day. So this is my favorite part. The northern lights. The northern lights happen when solar storms come from the sun. They come from with electrons, and they bounce off our atmosphere of oxygen, nitrogen. They create electrical charge, and that's what gives us those pretty colors. They can be green or yellow or red or orange or blue, depending on the altitude and depending on whether it's oxygen or nitrogen. So it's really interesting. I'm at Kennedy Space Center. The astronauts are in Houston. When they come to Kennedy, we usually get to talk to them for a week or so before they go to space. When we come back, we get to talk to them again and say, hey, what was your favorite thing to do while you're up in space? Every astronaut, no matter what they've done, no matter how many times they've been in space, they all say the same thing. They love looking out the window, or they love doing spacewalks where they can see the magnitude of where they are. We also have something called a solar flare. A solar flare comes from the sun with ions, protons, and electrons. And when it hits off Earth's atmosphere, instead of having a black sky, you would have a sky with all these multitudes of colors, and they would all be dancing around. Can you imagine what that would be like to look outside at night and see something like this? And scientists track solar flares. So if you're anywhere when you hear about a solar flare coming to the Earth, try to see it, because this is what you might see. So we talk about the future of the space program, which involves going to Mars. So why do we want to go to Mars? Well, scientists believe billions of years ago that Mars was a lot like Earth, that it had oceans and lakes and rivers, even had an atmosphere like Earth. And they think maybe something was alive then, or still may be alive today. So if you look at the two planets, first of all, they're what's called similar. I'm sure many of you had studied geometry, and you know in geometry learn about similar triangles. It means they look the same, but they're different. It's the same with Earth and Mars. Now, if you look at Earth, Earth is about twice the size of Mars. Our planet Earth is spinning at 1,600 kilometers per hour. It takes 24 hours to go around one time. That's called a day. Mars is spinning about 800 kilometers per hour. It takes 24 hours and 32 minutes. That's called a sol. And they're both tilted at the same axis. So you see there's a lot of similarities between them. So I want to tell you something about the Earth. The Earth is round. You will meet people who will tell you the Earth is flat. They really believe the Earth is flat. If somebody says to you the Earth is flat, all you do is say yes and walk away. Don't waste your time trying to argue with them. Don't waste your time trying to change their mind. They just want to argue with you. But they're going to tell you the Earth is flat. The best thing I suggest is say yes and walk away, and probably stay away from that person, because you really don't need them in your life. Say, okay, let's jump on a ship and let's go to Mars. Well, it's not quite that simple. There's something called opposition. What opposition means, things are spinning and things are moving. You know, if you're in one city in India and you want to go to the next, you can drive from one city to the other, nothing moves. But if you're on Earth and you want to go to Mars, both planets are spinning and they're going around the sun, different speeds and different orbit. So remember, the Earth is spinning at 1,600 kilometers per hour. It's going around the sun at 110,000 kilometers per hour. It takes 365 days for Earth to go around the sun one time. That's called a year. And if you like astronomy, and many people who like astronomy, instead of saying happy birthday to you, they will say to you, I wish you a happy trip around the sun. So if you have a friend having a birthday, say that to them. And if they don't know astronomy, they'll probably look at you real strange, but it just means I wish you a happy year ahead. Mars is spinning at 800 kilometers per hour. It's going around the sun at 86,000 kilometers per hour. It takes 687 days for Mars to go around the sun. So the Earth is spinning, Mars is spinning, both of them going around the sun, different speeds, different orbits. You want to launch something from Earth and have it land on Mars almost 500 million kilometers away. The beginning of the space program was pretty tricky, but they have it down pretty well now. So this is a little rover. This rover is called Spirit. There was two. One was called Spirit and one was called Opportunity. And they were sent to Mars 15 years ago to look for water, because scientists believe if water exists, life exists. And they believe if they find water, that some form of life have existed. So they were sent to Mars to look for water. But they have found a lot of water on Mars. Below the surface and above the surface, they found a lot of water. Now this rover weighs about 200 kilos, and it's about the size of a desk in your classroom, and it's solar powered. So I have a movie to show you how this rover got to Mars, but I want to tell you a little bit about it first. So many of you watching are probably engineers or studying to be engineers. And if you're studying to be an engineer, when you become an engineer, you're usually assigned to a team, a design team, depending on your discipline. If you're electrical, civil, structural, mechanical, whatever discipline you have, you're assigned with other disciplines. So together you form a design team. So you're sitting in an office and you're coordinating with each other. What's the electrical going to do, the mechanical? How do we build this structure so everything interfaces? And that's why it's kind of fun to be an engineer. But what happens on the Space Center, we're all in this engineering office and we're doing things like that, and they'll make an announcement that's going to say, there's going to be a launch in 30 minutes. So we put all our stuff down and we go to the beach to watch a launch. It's really cool. We get paid a lot of money to be engineers, yet we're able to go to the beach and watch this launch. Now, once you get to the beach, there's another public address system. So you're sitting there and you're looking at the rocket on the pad and you hear this public address system. What the public address system is, there's something called a Launch Control Center, LCC. Right next to that VAB, that big vehicle assembly building, is the Launch Control Center. And inside the Launch Control Center, there's about 100 engineers, and they're all monitoring different systems on the rocket. And they're talking to a launch director. And you will hear each engineer talking to the launch director saying, this system is good, this system is good, this system is good. And when all the engineers say to the launch director, all systems good, the launch director will say, go for launch. And then they count down and we hear it. We count down 10, 9, 8. We do this at every launch. It's part of the fun and part of the magic of being there. So when you see this, you'll hear them counting down. Count down with it. I'll count down with you. And I want you to pretend you're at the beach. You know, I really want you to have fun during this presentation. And I want you to think you're with me and I'm taking you to the beach. So all of you in India now, come to Florida. We're going to go out and hang out on the beach. We're going to watch a launch and we're going to watch this rocket and we're going to listen to the countdown and we're going to count down with it. So this is a Delta rocket. It has 9 boosters. Comes from Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. They built the rover. And this is Mars, almost 500 million kilometers from Earth. And the Delta rocket, inside the nose cone, the top of the rocket, that's where this rover is. And you hear some magical sensation, and we do this at every launch. So you see when this gets to a certain speed and a certain altitude, the boosters will start falling off. Going in the right direction. Some are for propulsion to keep it going at the right speed. Remember, it's got to overcome those variables of the Earth spinning, Mars spinning, going around the sun, different speeds, different orbits. So it's constantly. So you'll see when it goes by the sun, you'll see the sun and all the billions of stars in our solar system. 1 million kilometers. It took 7 months to get there. It's very fragile. And this is how it landed. Everything had to work perfectly. It's counterbalanced, so it'll end up on its wheels. Now you see where it's at. You see all of those rocks. Scientists believe at one time this was a huge lake on Mars. First thing happens, the big solar panels unfold. They take energy from the sun. They convert it to electricity. And that's a TV camera. It lifts up. And this is computer generated. It's going to show it cruising around Mars. But really it goes about 7 meters and it stops. It sends a signal back to Pasadena, where a geologist or a scientist will look at what's ahead and tell it what to do for the next 7 meters. The reason they think this was a big lake, you see all of those rocks on the surface. If you have a lake in India or anywhere on Earth, if it dries up, you will see all of these rocks at the bottom. That's called sediment. So they think this was a huge lake at one time. And they were sent to Mars to look for water. So, well, how does this thing look for water? It has a drill. And what it will do, it will look for a rock, a geologist will look at a rock and say, let's see how old this rock is, and let's see if water was present when it was formed. So it has a drill, it will drill a hole in a rock and look at the center, or what's called the core, because the outside can change from age or weather, but the inside will be exactly the same it was when it was formed. So there's actually 3 women in Pasadena, California, who are driving this around. And just like you have a computer game at home, they have a little joystick and they drive it around. And they're really fun. I've got to speak with them and they're really fun to talk to because they talk about driving around Mars like we do running to the store. So you'll still come up on a large rock that may tip itself over. So they navigate around this rock and they say, okay, let's look at another rock. Let's see with this rock how old it is and if water was present when it was formed. So it has a drill that will drill a hole inside the rock. And you'll see a picture inside the rock and you'll see different lines in that picture. Each one of those lines represents a segment in time. And based on the number of lines and the distance between them, a geologist can say how old that rock is, and based on the color, if water was present when it was formed. So these 2 rovers, 2 were sent up about 15 years ago. One went about 7 years, and the other one just quit about a year ago. The life expectancy was only 90 days. And the reason the second one quit was on Mars, people don't understand the harsh environment of Mars. They have these huge sandstorms. So I had this huge sandstorm and it covered up the solar panels and it couldn't charge the battery. And just like your car at home, if you don't drive it, the battery will die. And you can still charge it as long as there's a little life. But if it gets completely dead, you can't restart it. And that's what happened to this second rover. So this is another rover. This is called Curiosity. Now, Curiosity is much different than Spirit and Opportunity. Curiosity weighs about 1,000 kilos and it's nuclear powered. And you can see it has these big wheels. It's like a big 4-wheeler on Earth, but it's a 6-wheeler on Mars. And it has a laser. It can shoot a laser at a rock and blow a hole in a rock and analyze it. If it likes what it sees, it also has a big fancy drill. It can drill a hole and take a sample. And just like when you have chemistry, you go in a chem lab and you do analysis. You may go in a chem lab and a teacher will give you something and say, here, what is this? You got to figure it out. You put acid on it, you heat it up, you do different tests, basically determine what it isn't. That's how you figure what it is. And this is doing the same thing on Mars. In the back of this, there's 3 laboratories and they take samples and they analyze them. Now I want to show you how this one landed. You know how it got there, but I want to show you how it landed. It's so much different. I think this went to Mars about 7 years ago and it's still on Mars right now. Now the other one was a Delta rocket. This is an Atlas rocket. So the same thing, you're going to count down with it just like we did before. And we get this year, we're all going to jump up and down. Remember, we're at the beach, we're getting paid a lot of money, we're engineers, we're having so much fun. You know, often we know about these launches months ahead of time. So every day we're building up so we can get to go see it. And I hope you can share the fun of that. Okay, jump in. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. We're on the beach. We're jumping up and down. We're having fun. We're going to see this thing launch and say, when I see it, I say blast off and everybody jump up and down and clap. We're having so much fun. I love seeing this stuff. I would see this all day long. So we're really just going to show you how it landed, not how it got there. You know how it got there, but I want to show you how it landed. Same thing, when it goes through the atmosphere, it generates a lot of heat, so it has to have a heat shield. But Curiosity actually has steering rockets, so it can go through at the perfect angle, so it doesn't risk burning up. Same thing, a big parachute, heat shield falls away. It has its own propulsion system. So it flies around Mars looking for a landing site. When it gets to the landing site, that's called a sky crane. It lowers it down. Sky crane flies away. And it's on Mars right now and it's exploring Mars. And just like with the ISS, if you would like to see what this is doing, it sends back live feed from Mars. And all you have to do is go to the NASA site, nasa.gov, put in Curiosity, and see when it's going to send back live feed. And you'll be able to see what it's actually doing on Mars. It's exploring Mars. It's actually looking for life. It's looking for a landing site for future astronauts. And this is called Perseverance. Now, Perseverance is getting ready to launch next month. Perseverance is a lot like Curiosity. It just has some updated features. It's going to launch on the 20th of July. It's at 9:15, which is about, I think, 6:45 your time. And we just had this mission to go to the ISS with two astronauts on a commercial rocket. And on that launch, they had something called Launch America, hashtag, which is a number sign, Launch America. And on that, you were able to sign up and get daily updates and see it being ready to go to the space station. They're going to have the same thing with this. I'm not quite sure when they're going to activate it, but just keep up with the NASA site. You'll never know when they have that. And remember, it's hashtag Launch America. You sign up for that. It will show you this thing being out to the launch pad. It will show you getting ready. It will show you everything to prepare for launch. And this is a little bit different. It's very similar to Curiosity, but there are some updated features, better cameras, panoramic views, better radar, many better upgraded things. And this is really going there to see if it can find life. This is, they think, maybe we can find some sort of life. We don't know what it'll look like, but they think maybe we can find some sort of life. And so this is what's going to go. So remember, it's July 20th. It may change as it gets a little closer, but they only have a 3-week launch window. And what that means is they have a 3-week period when they can launch to Mars. Because of the way the planets are going around the sun, they're only aligned at a certain time. And during that 3-week period, they can go to Mars. If they miss that 3-week period, they'll have to wait 2 years before they can go again. So this is what scientists believe Mars looked like. They think it happens in lakes and rivers, and they think it was a lot like Earth. They said, well, what happened to Mars? For the longest time, they thought a big meteorite crashed through the center, through the atmosphere, and put a big hole in it, and it all escaped. But about 2 years ago, they came up with another theory. Remember, we talked about solar storms and solar flares coming from the sun. They come at tremendous speed, and they bounce off Earth's atmosphere, and they give us those pretty lights. Our planet Earth has a strong magnetic core that protects it. Mars has a weak magnetic core. So they think as these solar storms and solar flares were coming at Mars, and as it was rotating over billions of years, the atmosphere eroded away to what it is today. This looks like a NASA shirt, but it's actually a shirt that was given to me by a group of kids in Africa. The name of the school, Laker School, Anton Van Wouw, on the bottom, on the top, and the bottom says, live your dreams. Because one of the most important things I want to talk to you about today or this evening is your dreams, because I want you to know your dreams can come true. If you have a dream, write it down and ask yourself, what steps do I take to achieve it? Then plan the steps. And it's so, so important. Go slow. Remember those 3 things. Do your best, enjoy what you do, and believe in yourself. You know, doing your best is fairly simple. I don't care what it is. Challenge yourself. How well can I do this? And enjoy the challenge. Enjoy the sense of accomplishment that you did your best. It doesn't matter what happens. Feel good about your effort. If it's not what you want, do it again. I promise you, you will get better. But don't get discouraged. Stay positive and keep doing it till you get what you want. As long as you're doing your best, you will always feel good about your effort. That will give you incentive to do more. Enjoy everything you do. This has got a little bit more of a challenge. It's easy to enjoy something you really like. The challenge is to like everything, to find good in everything you do and enjoy it. It will be so much more fun. The same with learning. The more fun you have learning, the easier it will be and the longer you'll remember it. And the most important thing is believe in yourself. Very few people have belief in themselves. The reason many people bully is because they don't have that belief in themselves. So they try to make others look bad to make themselves look good in their own mind. But you really have to develop that belief in yourself. And the way you develop that belief in yourself is to go slow. So take your dream, write it down, say, this is my goal. And ask yourself, what steps do I take to achieve it? And plan small steps. Easier the step, the easier it'll be to accomplish. The more you accomplish, the more confidence you have. The more confidence you have, easier it becomes. and you build and you build and you build slowly. And one day you say to yourself, I can do anything. And when you believe that, you'll never have stress, you'll never have pressure. And if you enjoy everything you do, you'll never work. Your life should be fun. And this is the way I live. Nobody taught me. I'm not sure how it happened. I just know that every day is fun. And I'm no different than you guys. I'm a burger flipper from McDonald's. If I can make it to NASA, you guys can do everything you can. But remember, go slow. So this looks like a NASA shirt. Was actually given to me by a group of kids in Africa. They were 8 years old in the 3rd grade. And it says on the bottom, live your dream. Just like I'm talking to you about dreams and goals, I was talking to them. So they decided their dream was to come to America. So the girls went out, did fashion shows, car washes, and they came to America and they stayed for 2 weeks and we got to hang out. It was so much fun. We got to do all the cool things. We went to the beach, we went to Disney. We did all of the great things in Florida that everybody gets to do. And we really, really lucked out. We were able to get a bus and go on the Space Center and see a launch from 5 kilometers away. So it was super, super special. You know, at the end of the 2 weeks, they said, hey, Gabe, we came to America. We want you to come to Africa. Well, my first thought was, well, why would I go to Africa? It's so far away. And what am I going to do when I get there? But it's really, really important to me. If any of you write to me, many kids from India write to me. You can friend me on Facebook. It's Space Talk Gabe. I have 5,000 friends, so I really can't accept friend requests, but you can private message me. If you private message me, I promise you, I will answer as soon as I can. I'm every day, 8 hours, I'm writing to kids all over the world. So if I don't answer you right away, you know, hang in there with me. If you think it's been too long, write me again. I don't care. I want you to correspond with me and I want to be able to write back. So I said, okay, you came to America, I'll go to Africa. And in the course of doing that, a dream of mine came true that I never thought would happen. And I want to share my trip to Africa with you because I want you to remember, never give up on your dreams. They can happen when you least expect them. And as long as you stay determined, stay positive, and never give up, anything is possible. So this is actually South Africa. South Africa, the schools are still segregated. Some are all white, some are all black. They're beginning to integrate, but all of the kids wear uniforms. So I'm talking to you virtually. Usually hopefully I'll get to India again and I can talk to you in person. But this time I was talking to about 800 kids. It's an elementary school. All of the classes made signs. This was actually a 5th grade class. I just thought it was a cute sign. When I went into 3rd graders' classrooms, they made space costumes so we could all wear our space costumes. I send a lot of things to school when I come to India. Hopefully I'll come to your school. I'll be able to give you things you can look at and have a memory of the presentation. I sent so much stuff to the school, they built one room where they just went in and studied space. This was at a high school. They actually took 20 kids from 20 schools and they put them all together and I was speaking to them. And you all are a little bit older, so I'm going to tell you something. When I was in school, I hated to give a talk. I was in high school for 4 years and I never gave a talk once. If I had to go to school and give a talk, I didn't go to school. And I didn't go back to school until they let me in without giving a talk. So when I'm traveling around the world now and giving these talks, it amazes me because I was so paranoid and so scared to do it in high school. But I got that belief in myself. And once you have that belief in yourself, you just do it and you don't care. You don't think you're going to do bad. You think you're going to do well. And when you do that, everything is easy. My favorite thing to do with schools and when I see you and in India, it was fantastic because I got to hang out so much time when I was in India. It was a little difficult because the schedule was so crazy. I couldn't stay as much as I wanted to, but I always like to hang out with the students any chance I can. This is a little baby elephant. This elephant was so much fun. It would follow you around. It was just like a little puppy. I got to do something kind of fun. I got to ride an elephant. You know, in Africa, they're huge. So I had to climb up a flight of stairs, get on a platform, climb up another flight of stairs, get on this elephant. You're going side to side. I love to go fast. So it was so much fun. And this is my dream. I'm a cat lover. So I love cats. So when I got to go to Africa, I always had a dream of playing with baby lions. So I was asking people everywhere, how can I play with a lion? How can I play with a lion? I got to play with 4 little lion cubs and they were about 2 months old. If you look at this lion, I'm feeding it a bottle. Now they're just like kittens. They purr and they bite and they scratch and they jump around. But the big difference is this little lion weighed about 20 kilos and it was super strong, super sharp teeth, super sharp claws, and it loved to play just like kittens. So I was laying on the ground playing with 4 little lions, but they were really playing with me. They would drag me one place, I would jump on, they would jump on me. It was just a blast to do that. Never give up on your dreams. They can happen when you least expect them. I do this with my cats at home. I tried it with a lion. I say it was a lot of fun. He either liked it a lot or not at all because the tongue is sticking out. So just a couple more things and then we'll have time for some questions. The future of the space program involves astronauts going to Mars, to the moon, and then to Mars. And this is called SLS, Space Launch Systems. And I'm going to show you how this rocket is being developed. It's under development now. So you're going to see a countdown clock on the middle of the screen. You'll count down 15, 14, we'll all count down with it. Okay, so 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. They say blast off and everybody jump up and down and clap. We're seeing a rocket launch. It's so much fun. This has 8 million, which is about 4 million kilos. So this is a NASA mission, but I believe commercial companies or even other countries may go to Mars before NASA, because NASA's plan now is to go to the moon and build a base on the moon and learn to live on the moon before going to Mars. But I think some of the other countries and some of the other commercial companies may go to Mars before NASA. So you have many, many opportunities. So the last thing I want to talk to you about, I know Akila had mentioned that I've been to many different countries. And when I go to these different countries, I talk to kids from every age, from 4 years old through adults. And I basically talk about the same thing. At least I show the same thing. But one of the questions I get asked, no matter what country I'm in, no matter what age, I always get asked the same question. Hey, Gabe, I'm up in space. I got to go to the bathroom. How do you go to the bathroom in space? So this is a Canadian astronaut. He's going to tell you how you go to the bathroom in space. So it's really, really important. I want to tell you something about this movie. I get hundreds and thousands of letters from kids, and they always talk about this movie. But this, you really don't see this ship. It's a comical way of telling you what's in space. And we all wish on stars. You know, from the time we're little kids, our whole lives we've been taught to wish on a star. So the next time you see a star, make your wish. Go home, write it down, and say, "This is my goal." And ask yourself, what steps do I take to achieve it? Then plan the steps. And remember, plan small steps. It's so important. The slower you go, the easier it is. The easier it is, the more confidence you build. The more confidence you build, the easier it becomes. And you want to build that confidence in yourself till you believe you can do anything. Remember those three things. Do your best. Enjoy what you do. Believe in yourself. Your life will be fun, and it should be fun. People say, why do we waste our money going to space? We could use it in other ways. But with this something called spin-off, many of the things that are developed in space, many medical breakthroughs, all of our cell phones, all of our computers, all this stuff was built in the space program and used on Earth. So we're doing things in space to help us on Earth. Almost anybody can be an astronaut. You can be any age, any size, any color. You do have to be an adult because you have to be physically strong. So this concludes the presentation. I think we have some time for questions.
Yes. So this is the first question. What are the recent established aspects going on in the field of space science?
Well, right now they're trying to establish cures for diseases on Earth. You know, the space station is like a big laboratory. And what they're doing is they're looking at the problems we have on Earth and how can we solve them, especially medical, because they're in a sterile environment. So they're really learning to do a lot of things in a sterile environment that we can't go on Earth. They're also learning to live in a weightless environment. So the many things are being done in space to prepare, help Earth on Earth, but also help astronauts go on long-term missions, how they're going to survive both mentally and physically. You know, if you're going to Mars, you're going to be put in a ship for 7 months or 8 months, and you're going to be sitting in the ship for 7 or 8 months. You've got to stay mentally alert, physically strong. So they're learning to do that while they're up in space, as well as they're learning to do a lot of medical breakthroughs.
Okay. So, what, according to you, is the biggest challenge for space research during these COVID-19 times?
You know, it's just life in general, I think, is a big challenge for all of us during this time. None of us in our lifetime have experienced anything like that. I know India is struggling. America is struggling. There's many, many countries that are really struggling. And in America, we're having a big problem right now because things are opening back up and people aren't wearing masks. They're not social distancing. They're just ignoring it because if it doesn't affect them directly, they don't think it's a problem. So I think the biggest challenge, and maybe from space, you know, we can get the astronauts to talk to others, but it's to make people aware how serious this is, and we have to stop it and take it serious. I'm really concerned. I go to Brazil a lot. Brazil is very struggling. I know India is struggling. America, we're even struggling because people don't want to recognize the real threat. So I think it's awareness is the biggest thing with this virus, from my perspective.
Do you think we humans can look forward towards Mars as a decent future or alternative for residents?
No, I know people are saying this. Yeah, let's get Mars ready in case something happens to Earth. We have a place to go, but we really need to take care of the Earth. You don't realize how harsh the environment is on Mars. We can't breathe the air. We can't drink the water. The temperature is crazy. The environment is nuts. They have these huge sandstorms that engulf the whole planet for months on end. So all of these things are huge challenges. And you know, we could probably go to Mars today and we could land there. But when you go to Mars, before you can come back, you have to stay for 2 years because of the way the planets are going around the sun. So once you get there, you have to survive for 2 years. And you can't stay in a spacesuit for 2 years. So you have to have a habitat where you can live. You can take off the spacesuit. You can breathe. If any of you have seen The Martian, it's a pretty cool movie. And it kind of depicts what life might like be in the future, where they live in a domed area, they drive around in a car, they do some of the things that will be done in the future. But as far as going to Mars and a permanent residence, I really, maybe in 1,000 years, I can't see that happening anytime soon. And I think people who think that don't understand how complicated and the challenges in trying to do that.
Okay. Will there be a day where they'll welcome private companies to participate in space tourism?
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely. Yeah, they're working on that now. So yeah, there'll definitely be, and probably not in the too distant future, there'll be opportunities for people with a lot of money to be able to buy a ticket to go to space and just float around and see what it's like. For sure, that's going to happen.
Okay, and the last question is, can you tell us about COVID-19 ventilator that was created by NASA?
No, I'm sorry, I don't know about that. I really don't know anything about it. I couldn't even imagine to guess, but hopefully it's working and something that will done. You know, the big thing now, I think we've got to come up with a vaccine. They talk about maybe having it within a year. A year is a long time for people to be dying, and I'm really concerned about the many people on the planet who don't have the ability to even have a mask, or who live in such, you know, the poorest people suffer the most. And so the poorest people, and I've been all over India, and I know there are many places where Indian people are crammed together with little medical care and little food. And if a virus gets in that place, it could be terrible. So I'm really concerned about India, and I really, really like India. I think I mentioned I wanted to go there for so long, and I'm infatuated with Indian people. I have friends from India here, and I always kid around. I say, I love the way you speak English. Your dialect is so much fun, but I don't understand it. You know? So when I was in India, people were talking to me in English, but I had a hard time understanding it. But I love the way it sounds, and I had a lot of fun. I think the Indian people are just genuinely fun to be around.
Thank you. Well,
You're welcome.
Mr. Gabe, we're truly honored by your presence. We've learned a lot from your journey, and this was indeed an impactful session. Also, thanks to a wonderful audience for turning in. We hope you all enjoyed the session. The next GLS will be with Dr. Kumar, the Chief Data Scientist at Geo, on 21st June at 11 a.m. on Technovanza's YouTube channel. I'm Akhila Jagarnapuri, and until then, this is Technovanza VJTI, wishing you lots of learning in these quarantine days. Let's make the most of this. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.